And a very good evening to you, and welcome to Politics 101. David Hines here with you on our Friday evening show. Welcome to Politics 101. Political prisoner, political prisoner, political prisoner. The news, of course, is out. This morning, Brother Takuma Ogunse, accompanied by his lawyers, Nigel Hughes and Darren Wade, reported to the CID, and Takuma was taken into custody and cited for crimes under the Racial Hostility Act. And of course, the police would have intimated that they were not ready. He was then shackled, and taken to Brickdam, where presumably he's going to spend the rest of the weekend. And 72 hours would be up on Monday, and we will see what happens. What is instructive as we come on here tonight is that when Ogunse went there, the investigating officer was not there, and apparently the police either did not expect him or pretended that they did not expect him. But of course, the shenanigans have begun. Welcome to Politics 101. Tonight we're going to have expert knowledge, expert wisdom. As you all know, in our villages, in our communities, there's always a character. I don't know now, but when I was growing up, there was always an old police in the village. The old police was a fixture in the village, as much a fixture as the priest and the teacher and so on, the old police. And I was reflecting today as I was preparing for our guest tonight, Paul Slowe, who of course is a fixture. No, nationally, he has his own program, but he has been speaking out on matters of policing, of the law, human rights, and so forth. And so he's here tonight. We're going to be talking about policing. We're going to be talking about the Ogunse issue. We will also talk about that issue where the court found the president in violation of the Constitution as it relates to the Police Service Commission, of which Mr. Slowe was chairman. So we're going to be talking about that and other related matters. So please share the link. And good evening to you if you're joining us from Guyana. Good evening to you if you are joining us from outside of Guyana. Good evening to you. Good evening to you if you are joining us from North America, from Europe, from the wider Caribbean, from here in South America. Welcome to Politics 101. Another day of denial, another day of pomposity, another day of the government overreaching, another day of resistance, and another day closer to what we hope will be the backs of the PPP. We have never, in all my studies of West Indian politics, I've never seen a government like this. And we are a region that is considered to be a place where there is authoritarian government. All of our Caribbean countries have had experience of authoritarianism. But this government, this PPP government, is the worst. You know, Jimmy Cliff said the harder they come, the harder they fall. And when this government falls, it's going to be so hard. They overreach every single day. But we've got them on the run. We have them on the run. So Ogunse today with his lawyers went to the CID and they've taken him into custody. And we now are on a journey. We have to make this Ogunse arrest and charge. We have to make it a test case for this government. You can't call yourself a democratic government when you are burying free speech. There's no free speech anymore for those people who are not in government. You hear government ministers talk all kinds of things, libel people, carry on, attack the police, say bad things about the police, and nothing happens to them. But as soon as an opposition figure opens his mouth or her mouth, the police is called upon. This Ogunse case is instructive. We saw government ministers openly instructing the police to bring charge and to telling the police what charge to bring. That in itself is an offense. And so we are up against it, but we've got to keep pushing and pushing until this government goes. We cannot afford anymore to have the PPP government, the PPP party in government. I'm a power sharer, so I will say by themselves. A lot of you will say we shouldn't have them at all. Raping this country every day with no regard for the law, with no regard for the citizens, with no regard for international conventions. And so I think we have made the case. We have made the case. We have made the case. And somebody was asking me, I think a journalist, about whether I think the call for civil disobedience and non-cooperation is having an effect. And I answered by saying it definitely must be having an effect on the government. From the time WPA, as Jack Joe said, a defunct party, took to the streets a month ago, this government has been operating in a dizzy way. I think they didn't expect that a political party was going to call their bluff. They'd become comfortable. They'd become complacent. They had become disrespectful. And instead of standing up and fighting the WPA on the issues, they have decided to seek help from the police. Sisters and brothers, good evening. This issue of the open politicization of the police, the open call to the police, is a new development. Governments in Guyana have always used the police. Let us not pretend that this is the first time it's happening. But what is instructive and what is new about what the PPP is doing is that they're not even camouflaging it. They're doing it openly. And of course, Jack Dio is the pit bull. You know, yesterday he spent 15 minutes talking about the WPA. He said the WPA was defunct since 1980 when Walter Rodney was assassinated. My goodness, that's 43 years ago. 40, a death party for 43 years have you spending half of your press conference talking about. Thanks, Barrett, for making the WPA no longer defunct. Thanks. And in resurrecting the WPA, you have given life to the struggle against your government. Whoever's been advising you, they give you wrong advice. They don't understand politics. They don't understand Guyana, and they don't understand human beings. So Ogunse is in the custody of the police and in effect in the custody of the government. And we hold the government responsible for his safety. But as we said yesterday, we're not backing down, we're not surrender. We are pressing forward. When historians write the history of this period in Guyana's politics, the arrest and charges against Ogunse would be a defining moment. It will be pre-Ogunse and post-Ogunse. The PPP government, this PPP government has to get off the backs of our people. And only we can do that. Only we can do that. So let me bring in my guest, Mr. Paul Slowe. Good evening, Mr. Slowe. Your audio is.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Dr. Ice. Good evening to all the viewers. I'm happy to be here with you this evening.
Thank you very much. And you know about the old police in the village.
Yeah, I listened to that reference and I smile. Old police, there's always been, I hope I'm not categorized now as a old police. And you know, let me say, we have old police, OLE police, and we have old police, OLD police.
Yes.
That is how we say. Now, the old police is measured by age chronologically, and the old police, in police in Guyanese parlance, is a man not necessarily advanced in age, but a man who knows the rudimentary stuff and all the things relating to police. So I hope you have me in that last
yes,
category.
it's the OLE. Not the old police.
Yeah.
Who, you know, it's just like the teacher, the preacher, and so on, a font of knowledge. You know, one thing that strikes me when I listen to your program and listen to you on various programs is the way in which you speak about policing as grounded in the law. And a lot of people, although we know we call police law enforcement officers and so on, we don't think about police and policing within the context of the law in a way that we think about lawyers. When we think about lawyers, we think about lawyers in the law, but we don't think about police being conversant with the law because they are law enforcement officers. And so on. And it comes out whenever you speak, that nexus between policing and the law. Comment on that.
Well, yes, you know, the policing, you are, as law enforcement officer, as you rightly said, you have to enforce the law. And you can only enforce the law, one, if there is a law, and two, if you are aware of what that law is. But you cannot enforce what you do not know. And therefore, I find that in recent times, that has been the problem. I have said repeatedly to police on my program and on other programs that you cannot break the law to enforce the law. So the law is there, and you have got to follow the law to the letter. So if it comes to arrest, if it comes to investigating, you have got to know what the law says, and you have got to follow it scrupulously.
Mr. Slowe, I know the Slowes from BV. I went to school with a few of them at Buxton government secondary school. And anyone who listens to you would know, can know that that you are quite knowledgeable, and you're knowledgeable about the law, you're knowledgeable about policing, and so forth. Why a bright boy, as a young man, as a bright boy, um, you didn't do what bright boys tended to do, to go and teach, or to go in the civil service, or one of these office jobs? Why you chose policing? Why you chose to join the police force?
Well, let me be very candid. I am one of the persons, young boy from Bedford village,
Yes.
decided at a very young age, around 15 years old, that I was going to go to be a member of the Guyana Youth Corps, young soldier. The Guyana Youth Corps in those days wore army uniform, and I was attracted by that. So I went to the Youth Corps, and I became a member of the Youth Corps. Chumachumari was the base that I stayed. And as I would say, this military type bug thing bit me. When I left the Youth Corps, I think as many persons would have done at that time, I applied for the Army, the police, and the fire service. The Army would have been my first choice, having spent all of that time with wearing military uniform and doing military type of training. But then the police came through first. I went to Golden Grove. I did the examination at Golden Grove government school there, and I was successful. And as I said, the bug bit me. And once they called me, I went in first in the special constabulary in 1973, just prior to the elections. And then that was it. As they say, the rest is history. I became so in love with policing that I joined the regular force in 1974, 1st of March. And I spent sort of 7 years in the Guyana Police Force, rising and moving through the ranks from constable, retired in 2010 as an assistant commissioner. And that rank I held for over 11 years. I was an assistant commissioner for over 11 years. And because, only and solely because of a run-in I had with President Jagdeo and Minister of Home Affairs, Ronald Gadraj, when I was in Borbis. They wanted me to do something which I considered to be unprofessional and illegal, and I refused. And because I refused, I was victimized. You know, the President Jagdeo called me one Monday morning while I was in Borbis, and he told me that if I did not apologize to the minister for telling him that I could not return, I would not return a firearm to a businessman from Rosignol by that afternoon. And I'm quoting him here. He will side with the minister and I will suffer the consequences. That is what President Jagdeo told me. And that was way back in 2003. And I said, as I've said, I remained as assistant commissioner until I retired, right? Because of that same spitefulness. So I got to like policing, and I was fortunate to go to several prominent police colleges, such as the one in the UK, Bramshill in the UK. I went to the FBI Academy, and I was exposed to lots of training. So yes, I think I went around and I gathered quite a lot of knowledge.
That piece of information is very, very instructive, and it is that kind of information that I think the population needs to hear. We know it happens, but to hear it from somebody, a policeman, so they're accustomed to calling you. They called you when you were a police to instruct you to break the law, and you refused to. When you became chairman of the police service commission, they called you again to break the law.
Well, they're not. Apparently, they're intellectually lazy. They're not learning, because if the current set of people are checked, they would have seen that Slowe is not someone that you can compromise. But I guess they're so done that they decided to call again on the 16th of September 2020, less than 2 months after the government came into office. President arranged, and I'm using these terms very carefully, he arranged for us to meet, and we met at the office of the president in Shanapal Drive. And he indicated to me, well, after buttering, you know the term, people for me, buttering me up, telling me I was doing such a fantastic job, that you would want me to remain as the chairman, and that they were to establish some commission, and I wanted me to be. He buttoned me up, and then when he done buttoned me up, then he said, well, look, he wanted to, he broached the question about promotion of specific officers, and I told him, well, he did say too that some people are there for years and not being promoted. So I told him what the criteria was. The criteria for promotion, passing examination, not having disciplinary matters, and the like. I know he rambled on, and then that conversation ended on that day. And the Police Service Commission met for the first time that year to consider promotion. The 23rd of December we met, 2020. And we created what is known as a short list. That is the people who are to be further considered by the Police Service Commission, of which I was the chairman. And the very night, a meeting, telephone conversation was raised between the president and myself. And the president raised the same issue and was very irate that his people were not on this promotion shortlist. We later learned through an affidavit signed, and it's affidavit swore to by Senior Superintendent Calvin Brutus, who sits at administration now, that the promotion shortlist, that is what he said in an affidavit, was leaked to him by a confidential source at the Police Service Commission. So no doubt the president got that as well and knew that his people were not there. And that was the beginning of a whole set of interference and legal battles, because the very next day, the 24th of December 2020, Christmas Eve Day, Minister of Home Affairs Robeson Ben communicated with the person who was carrying out the functions of Commissioner, Mr. Nigel Appy, that he wanted several police officers charged criminally with varying offenses that was mentioned. I have the list of the persons, I have the list of the offenses that were alleged. And this is not the minister advising that an investigation should be done, which in itself would have been improper. This is the minister communicating to the man who was the head of the force, Nigel Appy, that these persons must be charged. When you examine the list, several persons who were shortlisted for promotion were on the list. And it was evident, it was clear as crystal, that the reason why that was done is because they did not want certain people to be promoted. Those persons included the late Senior Superintendent Cooper and others. So then that's the 23rd of December. Even before the 23rd of December, on the 17th of December 2020, several police officers led by the same Senior Superintendent Brutus and included Superintendent Chief Musad Bacchus, Assistant Superintendent Shavon Jupiter, Deputy Superintendent Ravindra Stanley, and Inspector Prem Narayan, got their lawyer C.V. Satram to write to the Police Service Commission and basically said that they know that promotion is likely to come up shortly. And these persons that I just mentioned have disciplinary matters pending. And these are individual letters on these persons' behalf. And again, as an old police, I have copies of those letters because it was addressed to the chairman of the Police Service Commission. Yeah, they wrote to say that these persons have pending disciplinary matters and that they were basically telling the Police Service Commission that no promotion should be considered until these matters were concluded. And they further threatened that should the Police Service Commission go ahead with these promotions, they're going to move to the court to challenge the legality of the promotion. That is what it was. That's on the 7th. That is even before the Police Service Commission met to consider promotion. As I said, we met. Then we the conversation with the president on the night of December 23rd. The communication from the Minister of Home Affairs on Christmas Eve Day, December the 24th. And on that same day, December 24th, 2020, Calvin Brutus, wrote to some of these senior officers whom the Chief Justice referred to as his rivals. He wrote to his rivals to advise them that they are being investigated for varying offenses by SOCU and by the CID headquarters. And the Chief Justice did remark as well that she found him to be very self-serving, that Brutus to be very self-serving, because he is there as a candidate for promotion to assistant commissioner, and he is writing to other candidates to tell them that, look, you are being investigated by SOCU and CID headquarters. So it's a long thing. So all of that took place. So, all right. So having not gotten their way, they initiated this process to criminalize myself and another member, Mr. Conway. So we were charged, trumped up charge for fraud, and the fraud that we were charged were related to some work we did for the police. We were asked by the commissioner, Leslie James, to assist in reviewing or to revising the police force standing orders. Myself, Mr. Conway, some other retired officers. And we agreed. They claimed, and even last Friday night, following the ruling of Justice Gino Prasad, the Attorney General, Anil Nandalal, SC, MP, and there's the pause there between the SC and the MP is there for a reason, because some people say a vowel is left out somewhere there, and they put in whatever vowel they want to put in. The very night last week, Friday night, was saying all manner thing on NCN about this process, about the charge and all. The whole thing, I'm not at liberty to go into the details of the charge because the matters are still before the court. So this process started to have us removed from the Police Service Commission. So eventually, on the 16th of June, 2021, the president wrote to each and every member of the Police Service Commission to tell us that we were suspended with immediate effect. The timeline here is very important. So on the 16th, the president wrote us on 16th of June, 2021, and the life of the Police Service Commission was due to end automatically on the 8th of August, 2021. So with less than 2 years to go, the president, as the court ruled last Friday, violated the Constitution, all because they wanted to get rid of the Police Service Commission that I was chairing. And the only reason for that, the only reason it is clear, is because they did not want the Police Service Commission to be in place when the Chief Justice ruled. She was due to rule on the 18th of June, 2021. So 2 days before that, they suspended because they knew they would have lost the case, and they did not want the Police Service Commission to be in place to go ahead with the promotions which were pending since December 31st, 2020. So that is quickly how that went.
Sisters and brothers in the audience, I mean, this is information I'm sure some of you would have heard it before, but to hear it again and again, because you're talking here about a mode of governance. This penchant to violate the laws and the Constitution of this country in pursuit of political ends. It's really the hallmark of this government. Mrs. Slowe, I said at the beginning of this program that we in the Caribbean have had our fair share of authoritarian governance, some more than some. And from a political standpoint, I have concluded that this is the most dangerous government in the English-speaking Caribbean from the time of independence in Jamaica and Trinidad in 1962 to the present. What you just described to us in the last 10 minutes, have you had to deal with that extent of attempt to manipulate the police and the judicial, the Police Service Commission in a way that you describe? Have you had that experience with another government?
But let me say this. You also mentioned something I made a note here, that the governments have always used the police. You said that the governments, yes, successive governments in Guyana have always used the police. There is right now what is unprecedented political interference, yes, in the operations of the Ghana police. Unprecedented interference. Look, and examples are there. You know, I always say on my programs that when I speak, I have evidence to back it up. And let me just make one, give the viewers one such instance. I think it was well publicized of the attorney at law who went to Soku and advised her client, yeah, not to give a statement to the police, which is a constitutional right. She was arrested by the people at Soku, led by his now superintendent, Krishnath Ramana. Right? He's arrested. The lawyer in whose chamber, the senior lawyer in whose chamber this lawyer works, decided to intervene. He did not call the Minister of Home Affairs. He did not call the man who sits in the chair as commissioner. He called the Attorney General. The Attorney General, in turn, did not call his colleague Minister of Home Affairs. He did not call the man who sits in the chair as the commissioner. He called directly the head of SOCU and instructed them for the young lady to be released. That is on record. He admitted that. He said that. And I'm telling you, that is political interference. That is political interference. No way. And I have said, when you look at it, why would the attorney call the Attorney General? He called because he knows there is a person who controlling the thing. That is the person who controls SOCU, and that is the person he expects to take the appropriate action, which he did in terms of having the person released. When it comes to promotion, you talk about the Service Commission, and the problems that we had is that when the PPP was in power before, there's evidence that they always interfered with the promotion list. They would first put someone there who is pliable. So you had the chairman from whom I took over was a man who is there now. I think he's some political man at Region 3, right? Omid Satnanan is his name. And when I talk, I can call name because records are there. They brought two civil lawsuits against me for defamation, and one fell by the wayside. The other one is still pending. But I am telling you that when I call these names, I have evidence. I have evidence. So they were accustomed to instructing who should be promoted and who should not be promoted. There is one case involving Senior Superintendent Coatley Ramsey. He's now retired, who was recommended for promotion by the Guyana Police Force. And from all the records, the Service Commission agreed. When the list was taken elsewhere to these police, I would normally say likely to the public or the Police Service Commission in Robb Street and to the Police Service Commission in Brigdam, Ramsey name fell off the list and other names were put on the list, right? Ramsey, I say can speak to that because Ramsey went to court and challenged it. And having challenged it, when they were confronted, the very now Attorney General Anil Nandalal, when they were confronted with the evidence and the facts, they, as we say in the country, they chuck in. They could not contested the matter, they chuck and basically agreed that Ramsey was not properly promoted. There is, and again, I have the evidence, an investigation based on the conduct of that Police Service Commission. Many persons may recall President Granger through the Minister Armand communicating to the commission that they are advising that no promotion should be held because of all the allegations of irregularity that were floating around. All the police will tell you, those who were around the time, allegations were made that monies have to be paid. And this is not just wild allegation, because the place where the person to whom the money had to be paid was identified. They did an investigation, was done. The investigation named the police officers who were alleged to have paid money to be promoted. Many of them now sit in very high positions. I have their names. Paid money to be promoted. Then you had a situation where allegations were made that a particular member of the Police Service Commission was demanding sexual favors, some female police officers, them to be promoted. These things are contained in a report. In a report. And what happened? As I said, all of those things were going on when with the commission that we took over from. So when we got there, the commission was in crisis. No one had confidence in the Police Service Commission, right? The police officers did not have confidence in the Police Service Commission. So we have to restore that, and that is what we did. Because people may not know, but let me say this, the Police Service Commission, according to the Constitution, is the body responsible for promoting and disciplining officers from the rank of inspector to assistant commissioners. I mean, everybody know about the promotion part. People don't consider, they don't care about the disciplining part. So we decided that because we have this constitutional responsibility to discipline officers, we started to do that. We started to make sure we follow the process to make sure officers against whom complaints were made, any type of complaint, neglected duty and unprofessional conduct, that the matter was investigated in keeping with the Constitution and disciplinary action was taken. So we became unpopular among some officers, right? Some who did not want, who wanted to do their own thing, so to speak. And They are the ones, I called some of the names before, who initiated this process to get the Police Service Commission removed. But yes, there has been interference, and when we got there, I can say this without any fear of successful contradiction. We were appointed by President Granger on the 9th of August 2018, and I can tell you, as chairman of the Police Service Commission, I had one meeting with the President Granger, in relation to promotions. And that meeting is a meeting that is mandated by the Constitution. When he wanted to make promotions in 2018 August, later the same month, of the commissioner and deputy commissioners, the Constitution says that he must consult with the chairman of the Police Service Commission, and that consultation was held. And that is the only time anything to do with promotion was discussed between that government and the chairman of the Police Service Commission. But they had been accustomed. So when they came back now, they came back trying to put the same old arrangement in place where they can influence promotion. And we, the members of the commission, stood up for that. We said, we are not going to allow that to happen. And that is where all type of thing went all over the place, all the vindictiveness and all of that.
Paul Slowe, former member of the police force, former chair of the Police Service Commission, giving us some of his institutional knowledge, having been in that force from 1974 up until he retired in 2010 or 2011, you said. So there's institutional knowledge, and then serving as part of the Police Service Commission. And we, as a people, it is this kind of information we want, because this kind of information is akin to what we loosely call a boots on the ground. Because when you're armed with the way in which the oppressor operates, and the disrespect for people like Mr. Slowe, you try to get a man to break the law once, he didn't break it. You try again. You must think that he's pliable in your head. You must be saying, these people, you can buy them, you can bully them. And that is the thing that we are talking about. I've said on this program many times, I don't care who joined which party. I grew up knowing there were always a few Africans in the PPP. Belgrave and Collymore and Harold Snag and my friend Shirley Edwards. And I was convinced that these people were committed to the PPP because they stayed with the PPP through thick and thin. I don't have a problem with Indians deciding they want to join the PNC. What I have a problem with is the way in which the PPP is singling out African people to make us fools. You're not interested in recruiting them to the party. You're interested in using them as props to carry them to Babu John, put them to sit down all by themselves in a corner, and then point to them and say, look them. We're a multiracial party because of them. It is the way in which you're disrespecting blackness. Those people did not walk off the streets and go and said, I want to join the PPP, give me a police. I'm sure of that. Those people, some of whom I've talked to, those people were given all kinds of inducements, perhaps illegally for joining in the PPP. And that is, you are preying on a particular group. You don't treat Indian Guyanese that way. You don't go to them and bribe them and tell them, come join the PPP. But you want to do it to people of other ethnic groups. And that's my indictment of the PPP. Mr. Slowe, the Ogunse matter. Now, you have pointed out on a few programs that I've listened to that is all business of issuing wanted bulletins for people and not going to their known places of abode and arresting them if the police conclude that they have committed crimes, that it is something new. And is that true that it's something new? And in your estimation, why are they doing that?
Well, it is something new. All the years I spent, and I was a commander in the various divisions in the force from I got my first command in 1990. I got my first command in around 1990, 91, and I commanded at that time the Tactical Services Unit, TSU. I then went to Region 3, which is West Demerara, as 2IC and commander. A matter of fact, I went there twice as 2IC and commander. I commanded Georgetown A Division. In those days, is the entire A Division, East Bank and East Coast. Borbies, I commanded Borbies. I was the traffic chief on 2 occasions. I was the head of the Presidential Guard when President Jagan was president for a period in 1994. When I left, I was the person who was at the operation, second most senior man in the force to Green. So I can tell you, in all the years of command, this what you have happening there about this wanted bulletins never happened in this way. Never. Because what would normally happen is that if a person is wanted for questioning, you make attempts to go where the person lives and to see if you can arrest that person, if it's something the person need to be arrested, because it's not every case. If you want a person for questioning in relation to some investigation, sometimes you don't have the authority to arrest the person. So you go there, you might invite the person to come to the station. If it is that the person, an allegation has been made, the person is arrested. The only time, and let me say this, the only time that wanted bulletins were issued was after you made attempts to arrest the person and you have evidence that the person is trying to evade you, or you don't know where the person lives. So you have a person you want to question, against whom an allegation is made, you want to question them, you make efforts to arrest them first, right? That is if you know where they live. Not only where they live, sometimes you do not know where the person lives, but you know where the mothers hang out. You hang out by Metropole, you hang out by Oster, or some one of those cinema. So you're all right, you make attempts to go there and to arrest. Now, if after a while you can't find him to arrest and you are convinced that this person is evading the police, right, then and only then you will issue a wanted bulletin for the person, because a wanted bulletin is a serious thing. Because as Dion Bascom said, and Dion Bascom, you know, Detective Sergeant who made those revelations about the death of paper shards, he said that once you have a picture published and wanted bulletin, that can be a precursor, right, to bad things happening to you, right? He said so, right? So that thing was used very sparingly. Now, what happens? It is clear that no attempt is made to find the person where they live, to arrest them. You put a wanted bulletin, and what has happened? And I believe that the persons whose pictures and whose names are put in the wanted bulletin, and some of the liars, I believe they are encouraging this, because what happened then, once the wanted bulletin is put, the liars turn them in. So in other words, the police don't have to go and do their work and look for the person and all that. They go and they turn them in. And once you are turned in, it is automatic what is going on now. You're going to be arrested. You're going to be kept for 72 hours or more. And then you're going to be placed before the court. That is a new form of policing. It doesn't happen, as far as I'm aware, nowhere else in the world would you find a person who is wanted. No effort made by the police to have them apprehended. But then they put a wanted bulletin. This person is wanted for some offense, and then the person will turn themselves in. That is the type of police. And I am saying this without any fear of contradiction, successful contradiction. All of that is happening because of the political involvement in the police force. And let me go on to say that these things follow a certain pattern. The Agunsi case, I am not, let me say straight up, I have not even listened to what Agunsi says. So I'm not in a position to comment on the merit. I have listened to it. I've seen snippets in the media, but I did not listen to what to get context to what was said. I made the same point what I'm making in now about Winston Jordan, former Minister of Finance. you have this dog whistler. In the case of Minister of Finance, the Vice President and the Attorney General came out and they said that they were disappointed in Slowe that the former government ministers were not arrested for all other various offenses, and they singled out Mr. Winston Jordan. And I said then in an interview with Travis Chase that in regards to that, I said if I were a betting man, I would wager big that within a short time, Slowe was going to arrest Mr. Winston Jordan, and I said, I put it this way, and find something to give him. And shortly thereafter, he was arrested. A few weeks ago, when the Attorney General and the President spoke about this Agunsi issue, and they used words like seditious libel and treason and all, I said the same thing. I said that is a dog whistle, if ever I heard one. And the way how the police force operate now, within a short time, I was convinced that Agunsi would have been arrested. So this morning, when I saw that he was arrested, I posted on my social media page. I said, look, I ain't lending nobody my crystal ball, so don't ask for it, right? Because you saw in the first case, but even with the case with the Police Service Commission, when on the 16th of June 2021, I received the letter of suspension from the president, I told my attorney, Mr. Selwyn Peters, who is in Canada, I said, look, having regards to this, I am sure they're going to move. Well, sorry, I misspoke there. Not when I received the suspension. When I received a show cause letter. It was a show cause letter signed by the Prime Minister, Mark Phillips, around the 1st of June. And I told Selwyn that they were going to suspend the Police Service Commission. He then told me, well, that cannot be, because according to the legal language, the condition precedent, according to the Constitution, was not in place, so it could not happen. I said, watch and see. Watch and see, right? So the condition is that you have to have a Judicial Service Commission. The Service Commission has to establish a tribunal to investigate the allegation made against a constitutional member of any one of the commissions, and those things were not in place. And Selwyn was telling me that because of that, I said, look, these are a lawless set of people, and they are going to disregard that. And so said, so done. So on the 16th, when I received the letter of suspension, and I called him to tell him, he said, man, like he's an Obi man. I said, no, me, I'm not Obi man. I know Obi man. I see in these things. I see with my experience, once you see certain patterns, you know what the outcome is going to be. And I was confident a few weeks ago when I said that that was a dog whistle by the Attorney General and the President in relation to Agunsi, and that he was going to be arrested. And I told people as recent as yesterday that once he is that bulletin goes in, I know the pen, he can turn himself in. And what gonna happen? Once he turns himself in, he's gonna be arrested. He's gonna spend 72 hours in the lockup or more, and then they're gonna put him before the court. And again, this matter, 3 weeks or something passed, and you're telling people you're making an arrest, you put out a wanted bulletin, but you're not ready to proceed. What nonsense is, what madness is that? Political directions. The police would have been instructed to do so. And let me understand this clearly, my listeners, viewers, Dr. Hines. Many times you don't have to tell, when we talk about dog whistle, as you as a political scientist will know, you don't have to tell a man to arrest him. You don't have to tell a man to arrest Takuma Ogunsi. But you use words, the dog whistle, the signal is picked up. But you see, I'm on the same frequency. So when the dog whistle is sounded, I can pick up and know exactly what is intended and what is likely to be the outcome.
Let me probe you a little here. The wanted bulletin said he was wanted for serious offenses and violation of the Racial Hostility Act. And my understanding is that this morning they cited him for the Racial Hostility Act, but not anything about the serious offenses. Explain that device, because it seems to me it's a device that's being used there.
Let's put something, as I've said, once the dog whistle was sounded, they're gonna put anything just to try to justify why this wanted bulletin issued. What you have to look to see now, what are the serious other issues? So when he goes to court and the charge the charges are read, then you will know what they are charging for. And I'm sure that you will find out then, your lawyers will see that based on what is charged, it's something that perhaps did not require all this wanted bulletin and the fact that it took 3 weeks to investigate. And if they have done any investigation, because you're very well likely to find out that when Agunsi appears in court, the prosecutors and the police on behalf of the police saying that, look, they're not ready to proceed. You're likely to have that. They're not ready to proceed. They're not ready to proceed. You're likely to have that. But I am saying that this action is a clear response to the dog whistle, which was sounded by the Attorney General and the President. Remember, Attorney General used all kind of words like treason and seditious libel and all manner of things. All that. So it's just, this one, as I've said, the wanted bulletin is just to circumvent the process. In other words, they knew that Agunsi would have turned himself in. They knew that Agunsi would have turned himself in. When I had my issues with the police, I made it clear to them, made it clear. Anytime you want to arrest me, you got to come find me and arrest me. I am not turning myself in to any police because I know exactly what it will be. You turn yourself in, it's just you're making the work easy for them. I've said that. And my colleague, Mr. Clinton Conway, when on the 19th of May, get all of these dates and all of these things, Pat, Doc.
Yeah, I noticed.
They say when you're telling the truth, you don't have to memorize anything, right? I know. So on the 19th of May, 2021, when they went for Mr. Conway, the same thing, they said they're inviting him to the police station. So Conway told them quite correctly, well, if you're inviting me, I'm declining the invitation, I'm not coming. Right? You're inviting me, so I'm declining. You see, we are all policemen, we know what goes on. They said, look, if you're inviting me, I am going to refuse the invitation, right? At which time, they decide, well, they were instructed, they said, that if you refuse, that they are going to arrest you. And that is what they did. In my case, I was overseas. I was overseas at the time on the 19th of May, 2021. I was overseas, so they couldn't arrest me, which they wanted to do. Which let me tell you and the viewers this. They wanted it so badly that they went to the airport. I was scheduled to arrive in Guyana that day, the 19th of May. I was scheduled to arrive. Then when Soku went to the airport and sat down at the airport in a car waiting to arrest me when I came off the plane. But as an old police, I get my contacts, I know what's going on. So I did not travel. I did not travel a day. And then they sent out one of the people from the media to ask me when I was coming. And I did what we old police would do. I gave them a red herring. I said, well, look, and then I went back again the second day. They went back the second day, sat there, and they waited for me. And you know what these scoundrels did? They filed charges against me and Conway and all these people on the 19th of May, 2021. They never questioned me. They never made an attempt to get me about this allegation about conspiracy to commit fraud. And after filing charge, they put a big release in Chronicle on them that I wanted. I must turn myself into the police and so on. I'm not going to go into any details on this because I have brought civil lawsuit against them in respect to that. But that is what they do. And they do this because people sit back and allow it. People say they're afraid. Up to today, I was speaking to a certain lawyer. I was the same, turn himself in. Say, well, they're going to come to you. I say, yeah, but then they could shoot you and all of that. I say, well, you have got to know to protect yourself. Because if I know a wanted bulletin is issued for me and they're likely to come and I am fearful, I can make sure I get witnesses. Many, many witnesses. So whenever they turn up, people are there. And in these days of social media, everything will be recorded. So let them go. And that is what they can. The likes of the Attorney General and them, they can handle this social media where you have the opportunity to state your side of the story. You know, Doc, you would know that long ago, something happens and then they control the media spectrum. So they go and they put out a narrative. And you, the ordinary man, you don't have a chance to respond because you got to respond through them, through the Chronicle and that type of thing, right? But now with social media and with program like mine, speaking out, exposing corruption, incompetence, I can come on the live and let people know exactly what transpired. That is what is freaking them out. That is what is freaking them out. You come on the live and you can tell people. And when you lay out your story, reasonable people will come to the conclusion as or come to the understanding as to exactly what transpired and who is lying and who is not lying. Like I said on Wednesday's program, speaking out, you spoke about these people. You called some names. These black people with the PPP. The Prime Minister Mark Phillips signed an affidavit before the court in this same matter that we referred to earlier with the Police Service Commission when I challenged the suspension. Mark Phillips signed an affidavit, swore to an affidavit, and said that the meeting that I alleged took place between myself and the president on the 16th of September 2020 never took place. The president himself on the 31st of May issued a press release. On 3 occasions in that one press release, he acknowledged the meeting. He acknowledged the meeting took place, but he disputed the content of the meeting. And Mark Phillips, the Prime Minister, is saying that this meeting never took place. The following day, after the 16th, the next day, the 17th, I had a meeting with this Arafat Kwalanda, who was trying to arrange a meeting between me and the Attorney General. I mentioned all of that. Mark Phillips said in the affidavit that this meeting never took place. This request never took place. And then he goes on to say, as a matter of fact, I got someone to approach the Attorney General to try to arrange a meeting between the two. Mark Phillips, the Prime Minister, said that. And for those people who don't know, an affidavit is a legal document. And once you swear to an affidavit and you tell lie, it amounts to perjury, which is a criminal charge. And that is what the Prime Minister, Mark Phillips, did. But he will hear more about it because, let me tell you this, I told him, you might be aware of this. This is not done as you like. This is what they did to me and other members of the commission. This is not done as you like.
Mr. Paul Slowe telling us tonight, taking us behind the scene, giving us a sense of the modus operandi of this government. And this is the kind of ammunition we need as we fight these people to get them out of the seat of government. Let me say something before I go back to Mr. Slowe. Lots of you this morning were questioning why the opposition leader and the PNC and other people were not in front of the CID when Ogunse turned himself in. Let me say very clearly, we in the WPA agonized about how we would handle this matter. And we finally decided Ogunse was going to turn himself in with his lawyers, but we didn't want to alert the public. We didn't want to alert them, so we couldn't tell the public anything. And in the thick of things, I should have called the leader of the opposition, and I just simply, it went by me. And this morning, the leader called me, and he said, "Man, why you didn't call me and tell me Ogunse was going to turn himself in today?" And I apologized to him for not alerting him. I should have done that last night, but as you would imagine, we were constantly trying to figure out how we can do this without alerting the other side. So those of you who have been critical of the opposition leader and the PNC MPs for not being out there, they did not know. The only persons we told were the media. And we told the media at 8 o'clock this morning, even the media, we did not give any advance information. So I apologize to the opposition leader and to other members. Brother Lincoln Lewis also called me, and quite a few other people called to ask why we didn't inform them so that they could come out and give solidarity. So I just want to apologize. Partly it was the WPA strategy, but also partly because I, as the person who's charging the party with dealing with these matters, I should have at least called the opposition leader and people like Brother Lincoln and informed them. So I know that again with social media, you all pick up things very, very quickly, and that is good. But in this instant, the opposition leader and the PNC, they are very innocent. And as I said, the opposition leader called me this morning before I could call him, and he was very disappointed that he didn't know. So I just wanted to give you all that information and to apologize to our partners and our friends for not inviting them. However, we are anticipating that Brother Gunse would pass through court at the earliest on Monday. And as Mr. Slowe said, they could go beyond the 72 hours, right? As spiteful as they are. But once we get information, we're asking you all, those of you who are in Georgetown and around, to be on the lookout for that information, if it comes on Monday or after Monday. We understand from our sources in Buxton that the government was anticipating that Buxtonians were going to come onto the streets and protest. And so they were busy putting their arrangements in place to anticipate that. And that's the point we keep making. We have to keep them guessing. And that is why we say civil disobedience and non-cooperation. They feel that Kidaki is from Buxton, I'm from Buxton, and Dion is from Buxton, and we were going to call out our people, or people were going to come out. And so they prepared for that. We learned today from our sources in the village. And that is what we mean by civil disobedience and non-cooperation. You act in your individual capacity, in small groups, and you keep them guessing. Because as Teacher George said, we're Guinea border Allah, another ELA. And so I just wanted to pass that information on to you. Mr. Slowe, you've spent time in the force. You've served as member and chairman of the Police Service Commission. And there's no doubt that the police is not held in high esteem in Guyana. I remember when I was a young man and even older, a police was a figure of authority in the community. You defer to the police. I know of police in my village. I stand up watching gambling, and police would come to me and say, "Boy, you're a school boy. This is not a place for you. This is not a place for you." And I never watch gambling after then. Or even if I take a little people they gamble and I see old police or new police or current police, again, run like a curry. And now the police are reviled in our community. Mr. Slowe, how do you, as a police, as someone who has given your life to that force, has given your life to that institution, how do you reconcile the police force that you joined 50 years ago, according to your testimony here this evening, and the police force today?
Now, let me say a few things. First of all, the police force that I joined, as you said, was a respected organization. People wanted to get there. When I joined in 1973, Carl Bobo Austin was the commissioner of police. He died shortly thereafter, and Uncle Fraser, Henry Fraser,
Yes,
took over from Henry Fraser. When Henry Fraser retired, Lloyd Barker took over, and then we had the first Indian commissioner, Balaram Raghabir, and so on. Those men were respected. Those men were respected to do what was the correct thing. And even though if politicians wanted a favor, something to them, the people had the skill and the dexterity to know how to do things within the law. But now you have people who, when they are told to jump, they just ask how high they must jump. And that is the problem. There's no independence, and there's no independence because many of them, I've said, are not qualified for the positions that they're in. And this qualification that I'm talking about is not only academic qualification. You have people there who have had all kind of allegations made against them. So there's no respect. And remember, respect is not something you can demand. Respect is something you have to earn. You have to earn respect, and they're not doing what they should do to earn respect. As a matter of fact, they're doing quite the opposite. Because when you see the man who sits in the chair of the commission running around all the place with the president, like if he's the president's bridesmaid, those things erode his respect. So this man is political. This man is there, and it's only because the government wants him to be there. And that is part of the problem. But let me, on the lighter side, before I move on, let me correct you. You say you peep gamble. As a countryman, you don't peep gamble. You don't peep. And when I use this term, I don't mean to be homophobic. But countryman say you're anti-man the gamble. Anti-man in the gamble is really countryman the say, right? So when you say you peep the gamble, I'm sorry, because I am familiar that you know, peep no gamble. That might say, look, I'm going an anti-man this gamble. And you look on and see what's going on. And then at some stage, you think like this to get mad. Because if you're anti-manning for a position where a man losing, then you say, right to move, you say, give me a ring. And if you don't want to move, you believe you're crossing it, give me a ring. And you know, you put it out and adjectives and so on, story that's come from that. So the next thing, on a more serious note, what I want to say too, you spoke about this 72 hours. That is another form of abuse. That is another form of abuse by the police. There's no law, listen to me carefully, folks. There's no law saying that a person must be kept for 72 hours in custody. There are no law in Guyana saying that. What the law says is that the person shall not be kept for more than 72 hours unless so ordered by a court. So they reverse the thing. Once you hold a man, you get a 72, but that is not the law. So in this case, where a man turns himself in to the police, you never made an attempt, I'm not talking about Agunsi, you never made an attempt to arrest him. All right, he turns himself in with his lawyers. Therefore, he's no flight risk. He is no flight risk. He turns himself in, right? There's nothing preventing the police from saying, all right, you go on bail, either to come back to the police station on Monday or Tuesday, or to go straight to the court when the charge or charges is or are filed. That is it. So a big abuse, one thing, oh, they're going to lock you down for 72 hours. No, that is not the law. And this came about, I can't remember, I think 2003 around then, or even before that, because police used to keep people in custody for long time, sometimes a whole week before they're charged. So there was this constitutional amendment, I think it was a constitutional amendment, yes, I think it was, which says that you cannot keep a person in custody for more than 72 hours without the permission from the court. So what happens? If 72 hours is up, then you sometimes you arrest a person for a serious offense, and you cannot conclude the investigation to charge within 72 hours. So you go to the court with an application to have that time extended. And then you make your argument, the court will extend. Some of the nastiness that they do, perhaps it happened in my time, I never did it, is that when the 72 hours up, you release the person, and from the time the person walk out, they rearrest the person to say that the new 72 hours. Those things are illegal. Those things are illegal. The problem is people don't challenge these things. So coming back to the suspension of the Police Service Commission, the problem is people say, well, Slowe strong and Slowe is this and Slowe is that. But unless you challenge these things and let the court pronounce on it, they will continue, because this has been an eye-opener. This is now legal precedent, not only for Guyana, but for the entire Commonwealth, that the president cannot suspend a constitutional body in the manner in which the president purported, or not purported, the manner in which he did it. The judge has ruled. I understand they say they're going to appeal, but we are confident. Let's go all the way to the CCJ, and I'm sure the decision of the Justice Gino Prasad on the down last Friday will be upheld right through the appeal process. And let me tell you this, Dr. Hines and the viewers, they know that. They know that. So it's just blustering and a lot of noise to hoodwink. For example, when the Attorney General went on NCN on Friday night, it's just to satisfy a constituency that, oh no, oh, the judge wrong and we were correct and we are going to appeal. And then he used a lot of flowery language. He's known for that. A lot of flowery language and so on. But look at the substance. The word all is fancy flowery, the substance. The substance it is. So I'm saying again to people that this 72 hours thing is being abused. There is no law saying that the police must keep a person for 72 hours. The law is the opposite, basically, that you should not keep the person for more than 72 hours unless a court intervenes and a judge says, well, yes, you are. And then what happens? The judge might tell you keep the person for another day. And if you're not ready then there's where the habeas corpus will come in. People move to the court and take the person, when the court will order that the person must be brought before them and hear the matter. So please, you're educated.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul Slowe, giving us about 10 mouthfuls here tonight. And giving us some tools to work with, because some things we take it for granted, as he's been saying. And we accept these things as normative when in fact they are illegal. Mr. Slowe, anything that I didn't ask you that you think I should know and the audience should know?
Well, what I want to say, I invite the audience to read that. They say, I don't know if it's available. I have it. I am going to consult with my lawyer. We're going to try to put it up on social media so people can read it and understand exactly what Justice Gino Prasad said last Friday, because, you know, snippets were carried in the media and people did not get the fullness of the ruling. But it's a very impactful, it's a very profound ruling. The president has violated the Constitution. The judge said he acted arbitrarily, he was unfair, and a lot of words describing the president's action said that the suspension of the Constitution of the Commission was ultra virus the Constitution, null and void, and of no legal effect. I am in the process of penning a letter to the media because one of the big disappointments I've had, 1 week has elapsed since that ruling, and hardly a word from the guardians of democracy and all of these other organizations. This is a judge ruling that the president violated the Constitution. Back in 2016, when President Granger sought to suspend Carville Duncan as chairman of the Public Service Commission, the very Anil Nandalal, who is now Attorney General, made a lot of statements. And again, I don't have it here. Actually, I don't have it at the quote. And my thing is that when I talk, I quote in exactly what they say. So let the one run. But basically, he said that the president violated some of the most sacrosanct provisions of the Constitution. And then he said that in democratic countries, president, or as the case may be, prime ministers, are known to have been impeached for far less than that. And in the same mouthings, he went on to point out Article 94 of the Constitution, which speaks to impeachment, and was saying basically that President Granger should be impeached. President Granger should be impeached. And you know, I have assistant, The assistant brought the thing. According to Nandalal, the president has flagrantly violated the letter, spirit, and intent of some of the most sacrosanct constitutional provisions. And indeed, his actions strike at the very heart of our constitutional democracy. Presidents or prime ministers, as the case may be, have been impeached for far less in democratic countries. In Guyana, this is barely front page news, and life goes on. Not a murmur from the associations representing lawyers in this country. That is what the Attorney General said in 2016. And remember, no court ruled that President Granger had violated the Constitution. This is a case in the Police Service Commission where all the arguments were made. All the arguments. The government argued, my side, led by Mr. Selwyn Peters and included Mr. Dexter Todd and Dexter Smart, argued the case. Nandalal, he put up and basically tried to rebut. And the judge finally ruled that the president violated the Constitution. I didn't hear anything from anyone. I think yesterday GHK Lal mentioned it. So all of these institutions are quiet. all of these institutions are quiet. So where is the democracy we're talking about? When a court has ruled that the president has violated the Constitution and in suspending the Police Service Commission, and as according to Nandalal, not a murmur from those persons, not a murmur. He called, he said, he talked about the Article 94 of the Constitution. Let me read this part too for our viewers. He said, making his case for impeachment of President Granger, Nandalal points to Article 94 of the Constitution of Guyana, which provides that, quoting here now, the president may be removed from office if he or she commits any violation of this constitution or any gross misconduct. That is what Anil Nandalal, SC, MP, said in 2016. And as I said, what is good for the goose should be good for the gander.
What is good for the goose must be good for the gander. Brother Paul, thank you so much for coming on tonight, and my apologies for not calling on your services more often. I know you're quite busy with your program, but you know, different settings sometimes bring out the thing differently and so on, and some things you may forget on one program, it comes out on another program. But as we go forth in the coming days and weeks, I shall be calling on you a little bit more often. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Anytime, Doc, anytime. And I want to use this opportunity to plug, if they look behind me speaking out, this is a program I have on social media, YouTube included, every Wednesday at 11 o'clock. And if you go now to YouTube, those of you who are not a follower of this program, if you go now to YouTube, Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption and Incompetence, all the episodes are there for you to view at your leisure.
Speaking Out on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock. Please put that on your calendar. It's once a week. It's not like the rest of us who come every day, once a week. So please put that on your calendar. Thank you very much, Mr. Paul Slowe, and we shall talk shortly. I want to say how proud I am of you all, the numbers last night, the numbers tonight, you know, amazing. We have gone last night we topped 3,000. Tonight we went close to 3,000. And I want to say that is what frightens them. Because when 3,000 people are here now, and you go to Mr. Duncan, and he's the big dog, he got 6,000. And then Mark got another 4,000. There's 13,000, and like that's what they fear. They fear the open word. They fear the open word. And listen to the quality of discourse tonight from that brother. He didn't attack. He's armed with his facts. So his voice and his discourse has integrity. And all they can say is that we are up in here every night preaching racism. It is the impasse of Black people that all we can do is preach racism. We, the victims of racism. Racism was created to oppress us. And it comes off them all. They know that we are not racist. What they mean to say is that we are inferior. We are not capable of reasoning. But I tell you, my auntie used to tell me since a day in primary school, she says, sending you to school, not just to read and write, learn to read and write, but also not to make people make you a fool. She was very clear about that. I couldn't understand the philosophy behind it until I turned an adult, and I understand what that woman was pounding in my head. And so they believe we are fools, that they can fool us and they can use us and they can abuse us and like those mostly women that they took to Babu John, they abused those Black women. It's abuse. It's racial abuse. And that is why I don't cuss those people. Because the PPP is abusing them. And I want to say to the rest of us, We got to stop that abuse. We have to stop it. Get us like ornaments. Get those women like ornaments, skin in their teeth when the camera, put them in a corner by themselves. It's racial abuse. And that is why we issued the wanted bulletin for the 4 of them. And we will add more of them to that wanted bulletin. And as I said last night, that wanted bulletin does not have any statute of limitations. And so, as I always say, there is life after the PPP. You all hear that good? You all hear me? Hear me? Buscayes. We know that they're listening. And I'm saying to them, they got life. They got life after the PPP. Life after the PPP. And so, sisters and brothers, we're going to keep putting out the wanted bulletins for them. We're going to keep charging them with crimes against humanity. We are going to keep putting them before the court of public opinion. We know they're frightened. They think they were looking for Buxton this morning. But we're Guinea border, not daily. We want them to go looking at every village, wondering if the uprising will come. They play that they're bad, but they're looking in every hole, every little cranny. They're looking to see what would happen. We're Guinea border, not a yearly. We're glad. That's what we want them to go to Buxton, go to Golden Grove, and peep to see what will happen. Civil disobedience and non-cooperation at its best. I love it. I love it. I love it.